factors. Which one shall we identify with? Which one shall we embrace and cultivate and reinforce? And which one shall we say, oh, but this is like rotten food? If I start falling into resentment and think, oh, I can't stand that person, he's such a, start thinking really negative thoughts. If I reinforce them, identify with those thoughts like that, then it's like eating bad food, right? And the point here is not just that the Buddha said this is bad. He's not God. He did not impose these laws on us. It's just a natural. It's natural. Some thoughts, attitudes, and so forth are unwholesome. They bring about a disequilibrium, disruption, turbulence, imbalance in the body and mind, very unhealthy. Psychologists have been studying anger for years now. Very detrimental. Very bad for your health, very bad for the heart. Whereas they're doing studies of loving kindness. They're doing studies of mindfulness. They're doing studies of attention. They said, but this is very good. This is very good for the body and the mind. So this is what mindfulness is for. It's just really to maintain the balance, the health of the body and mind. Buddhaghosa, can I read just a little bit more? Buddhaghosa, now the most authoritative commentator in the Theravada tradition, he gives a rather technical definition here of mindfulness. I'll go through it fairly quickly. He says, by means of sati, or mindfulness, they, that is other mental processes, remember. So in Buddhist psychology, multiple faculties or mental factors operate simultaneously, but that which enables us from moment to moment to recall something is sati. It remembers, or it itself remembers, sati remembers, or it is just simply remembering. Thus it is sati. So this, again, is a primary connotation of recalling. Its characteristic is not floating. Floating is kind of going a little bit woozy, like getting spaced out, disengaged, a bit like that. Attention deficit disorder, okay? It's not floating. Its property is not losing, as in not forgetting, right? Its manifestation is guarding, or the state of being face to face with its object, which means a very close engagement. If you're mindful of another person, mindful of your food, mindful of your breath, you're face to face, engaging with it in a flow of knowing. So it's not just, again, unhinged or disengaged. It should be like a post. It should be seen as like a post due to its state of being set in the object. It really fastens on the object, and as like a gatekeeper because it guards the gate of the eye, and so on. So this is our primary faculty with which we develop attention. We achieve shamatha, we achieve jhana. Mindfulness is the great engine, but mindfulness needs some help. That is, if you just practice mindfulness, but you don't exercise this second faculty of introspection, it's said it's like having a house full of treasure and no guard at the door. So a thief can come in and say, oh, good, nobody's looking, and just steal all your wealth. And so you could be practicing and thinking, I'm practicing mindfulness of breathing, and then not even notice that you're just off thinking about something entirely different. And minutes could go by. And the background thing, I'm meditating. And in fact, the mind is just going off all over the place, right? And so there needs to be a faculty that recognizes as swiftly as possible when the thief has come in and is stealing your jewels, right? And this is introspection. So mindfulness is focused on the object of meditation, the sensations of the breath. Introspection is not focused on the breath. Introspection here is focused on the mind, the process of attention, the process of mindfulness, to recognize, and it has really a simple task. Mindfulness, in this case of practicing shamatha, has to just look for two things. And that as you're practicing, let's say, mindfulness of breathing, one of two imbalances is likely to come in. We call them excitation and laxity. Okay? Excitation, I think we all know. It's when the agitation, the turbulence, the wandering mind, the excitement, and we're carried away, right? So it's the faculty of introspection with this faculty that we need to recognize as quickly as possible, I have forgotten the breath. Mindfulness is gone. The attention has been carried away. Recognizing that, then you remember what to do. What should I do when the attention has been carried away? I fall into excitation. Do you remember from last night? What's your immediate antidote when you find you've fallen into distraction? What's the immediate antidote? Pull yourself back to the breath. But there's something, it's quite true, but there's something rather important just before then. Before you yank it back, what do? Yeah, you recognize it, and before you pull it back, what do? Something right in there that's very important. Relax. It's that looseness, right? So it's very easy. I'm a rather impatient person just by disposition. I'm a go-getter, right? Probably a type A personality. Let's go and get things done. And so if I approach, and when I started practicing shamatha, I was all, shamatha or bust. Let's work really hard. The harder I try, the faster I'll achieve it. Good American attitude. Let's just get in there and conquer Mount Shamatha. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work by sheer muscle, by sheer effort. If I try harder, I'll just get there faster. Try harder, you'll get tense faster. You'll get stressed out faster. You'll get depleted and drained faster. And then you'll want to give up, right? And so you're practicing mindfulness of breathing. Your mind is carried away. Recognize it as quickly as possible, just noting it, just quietly noting it. The introspection is likened to a spy. The spy his job is not to wage the war. He just gets on the telephone and says, Commander, he phones headquarters. Commander, the enemy's invading on the left flank, right? That's all he has to do. Commander is where the intelligence is, right? And so the intelligence. And then the intelligence checks with his team. What do we do? What do we do when excitation is coming in? Back to headquarters, back to Prajna, intelligence. What was it? Relax. Oh, the first thing is, let go, release. No, don't pull it back. Just, so it's as if you're releasing. This thought is trying to yank you around, right? Yank you around. And then just go, so it slips right off. So first of all, relax. And then, now that you've released the thought, then it's quite easy to bring the attention back. Then it just goes and settles back in. If you treat the mind like a dog, a really rambunctious dog on a leash, and you're always pulling it back, and the dog always wants to, and it's just this tug-of-war for the whole walk. The dog wanting to go every way, always pulling, you get exhausted, right? Whereas if your first response is relaxation, and then letting your attention come back, that's not exhausting, okay? So that's the first response. So you recognize with introspection, and then you remember what to do. That's, relax. Then you implement your will. Then you do something. You exert your intention to release, and then you let your awareness come back, and you come back to balance. On the other hand, you may be sitting there in mindfulness, and then you notice the mind's getting a bit groggy, or the clarity that you have. Like right now as I'm attending to your face, it's very clear, very clear. I'm really looking, right? But now, I'll do it with you. Now watch, I'm going to give you a cartoon of what it looks like, this slippery slope. So what's your name? Jeffrey. I'm going to look at Jeffrey. That's called the slippery slope. And that was a cartoon, but you can see first, very clear, I'm very engaged. And then I'm kind of losing it. And then I'm losing it more. So it goes from laxity to dullness to sleepiness to snoring. That's the sequence. So with the introspection, you try to nip it in the bud. As soon as you notice even a little bit of loss of clarity, then what's your first response? This is easy. When you're losing clarity, you're kind of losing, getting a little bit spaced out, the mind becoming a bit lax. What's your first response? What's the first antidote? Take a fresh interest. Arouse your attention. Right? So if you're starting this phase, then come back. Engage fully again. So arouse the attention. Take a fresh interest. Beef it up a bit. Juice it up. Right? And that's how you balance that out. So in excitation, first response is relax. But dullness, first response is arouse. Okay? So introspection plays a crucial role here. Now, when you achieve a very high state of samadhi, when you can sit for three hours or so, and there's just no excitation or laxity at all, then you don't need introspection any longer. Because introspection actually breaks the flow of your mindfulness. Now, that's at an advanced stage, right? Then you just have an ongoing perfect flow of mindfulness with no laxity or excitation. So once again, it's a cost-benefit analysis. if introspection, breaking the flow, so the mindfulness is directed towards the breath, introspection is not looking at the breath, it's looking at the mind, so it's breaking the flow of mindfulness. But probably there's going to be greater benefit if you very briefly break the flow of mindfulness to check up, so you recognize quickly. But when the flow is very deep, very strong, then you release introspection, it's done its work, right? So it's like you're building a safe. And until the safe is finished, you have the guard, you know, the safe is being built, you have the jewels there, and the safe is being built, and the guard is making sure nobody steals the jewels in the half-built safe. But when the safe is completely built, and it's an absolutely strong, impenetrable safe, then you can fire the guard. Because now the safe is good enough, you're safe, okay? So let's just read a brief comment from the Buddha, and then I went on longer than I wanted to, but here we are. But you said it's vacation tomorrow. Okay, holiday tomorrow. But here's just one of many references by the Buddha just showing the role of this introspection. And he's actually, so he's going through the different types of nivarana, the type of obstacles or hindrances. He says, herein a monk should constantly review his own mind thus. So constantly reviewing his own mind is the practice of introspection. And introspection is a type of intelligence, which means it's discerning. Discerning. And it poses a question, does any excitation, the agitation concerning the 5 chords of sensual pleasure, 5 chords for pleasure of sight, sound, and so forth, does this excitation concerning sensual pleasure ever arise in me on any occasion? In other words, is that kind of craving or excitation caused by craving, does that ever occur? If on reviewing his mind, the monk understands excitation concerning these 5 chords of sensual pleasure does arise in me on certain occasions, then he understands desire and lust for the 5 chords of sensual pleasure are not abandoned in me. So he knows he's not an arhat yet. Okay? And he knows that by way of introspection. He's monitoring his own mind. In this way, he has introspection of that. But if on reviewing his mind, the monk understands no excitation concerning these 5 chords of sensual pleasure arises in me on any occasion, then he understands desire and lust for the 5 chords of sensual pleasure are abandoned in me. In this way, he has introspection of that. So the passage goes on much longer than that, but I think that gives a good sampling of the nature and the function of introspection. And this is something that is to be refined. That is, it can get better and better, sharper and sharper, so that you recognize extremely subtle impulses of laxity and excitation. And in this way, you're sharpening the knife of your introspection and of your mindfulness. And that's how you progress along this path. Okay? So now I'd like in our next session, we're going to try to integrate or synergistically cultivate relaxation, stability, and vividness, all 3. When these 3 are cultivated simultaneously, they can actually feed each other. And so I'll give one analogy, then we'll go to the sit, my favorite analogy. And I made it up, so I'm a little bit new age. I made up something. But I think it's not bad. And that is, we think of a tree, and maybe I gave this earlier, I can't remember. But somebody years ago gave me the seeds of a redwood tree. Kind of these enormous trees we have in California. They can grow 150 feet high. The breadth can be 20, 25, 30 feet across. They're enormous. But the seeds are tiny, little tiny seeds. And so you sow them, and then if you could live for about 2,000 years, then you would watch from the seed, a little sapling comes up, and what you would see, if you could have a time-lapse photography going on for a good 1,000 years or so it can get to maturity, we all know what you'd see. You'd see for this vast tree that simultaneously its root system is going and getting better and better developed, going deep into the earth and holding firmly the earth, very deep, because this is a massive tree. While the root system is developing, the trunk is growing up and getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And as the trunk is getting stronger, then the foliage, the branches reaching up to the sky are going up 100, 150 feet up into the sky. So you have the roots, the trunk, and then the branches and foliage going up to the sky, right? So I would suggest this is a close analogy to the synergy with relaxation being like the roots, stability being like the trunk, and the branches reaching up to the sky being like vividness or the clarity of attention, right? So the roots are taking nutriments of the soil, which then they benefit from, but of course they're sending that up to the trunk, which gets stronger. The trunk is like a freeway or a motorway, sending those nutriments up to the branches. So everybody's benefiting from the nutriments in the soil. On the other hand, the needles from this tree, or leaves from other kind of trees, they're of course taking carbon dioxide. They're taking carbon from the atmosphere. And so they, by photosynthesis, they're drawing from the atmosphere, they're drawing nutrients from the air, drawing that down into the trunk, nurturing the trunk. That's going down to the roots, nurturing the roots. So the whole system is all working together, nurturing simultaneously the roots, the trunk, and the branches. In a similar way, the more deeply we develop relaxation, we know this is true. You get very deeply relaxed. Naturally, the mind gets very calm. Right? If you're really relaxed, the mind, so pleasant. Right? If the mind is calm, that is the chit-chat, all the turbulence of the mind is really getting calmer. The clarity can come up very clear. I'll give you one example of this. I talk too much, but I love this topic. That's my problem. But consider how difficult it is if I should say right now, visualize, here's a beautiful image of Maitreya. If I should say, close your eyes, let's just do it for a couple of seconds. There's the image. We all see it clearly. That is, all of us in this room see it clearly. And others remember this beautiful granite image of Maitreya in front of the shrine. So from your memory, now just for a couple of seconds, see if you can generate that image in your mind's eye. Most of us find that a little bit difficult. Okay, already finished. Some have greater ability. Some don't get anything. And for most of it, it's kind of flickering. It's not so clear. It's easily lost. But now consider when you're dreaming. Tonight, you could dream that you're back here in the shrine room, and you could dream that you're looking up at the altar and dream that you're seeing this image. In the dream, this could be crystal clear. It could be so clear you think you're really here in the shrine room, right? So why is it that in a dream the imagery can be so clear that we mistake it for waking experience? The mind is really calm. Really calm. You have no distraction from the five physical senses. All of your attention has gone into mental awareness. So there's no competition. And so whatever image come up, it's so vivid that we commonly take dream experience to be waking experience. Right? That's called a non-lucid dream, where we're dreaming and we don't know we're dreaming. We think we're awake. But notice how clear the images can be in a dream. And that's your ordinary mind. That's not a yogi's mind. That's an ordinary mind. But it's so clear because the mind is so calm. You're asleep. And you don't have all the how do you say, interference from the five physical senses. So as the mind becomes more relaxed, the stability can get stronger. But now when your mind is very stable, that can make you more relaxed. As the mind gets more stable, it's easier to bring greater clarity. But when the mind is very clear, then we want to focus, and that enhances the stability. The stability increases the relaxation. So the whole thing works synergistically. Quite powerful, okay? That's how shamatha works well. How it doesn't work well is just trying really hard, okay? That's just burnout, okay? Let's go and do it again. Lasso. Before we go to question and answer, I'd like to just make one concluding comment. Yogis have known for centuries in multiple traditions that the key to success, the key to the meditative practice really being beneficial is continuity. I'm perfectly aware that many, perhaps even all of you, have very busy lives. Some of you certainly have families, you have jobs, you have many demands on your time. I think I do as well. And so for the time being, it may not just simply be not possible, not even conceivable, that we could spend 8, 10, 12 hours a day meditating and just, spend a lot of time developing this fully, because we have other obligations, and they may be very meaningful. And so we may be able to only take out 20 minutes, a half an hour, maybe an hour each day for really focusing ourselves on meditation. So if we consider 1 hour of meditation and maybe 15 or 16 hours of not meditation, well, imagine a football game in which there was one player on one team and then 15 on the other team. Who's going to win that game, right? And so to try to even the playing field, to push that metaphor a little bit, there's a phrase that I like. I call it seasoning the day. So you take seasoning and you put it in food. You don't just take one spoonful of the seasoning, but obviously you sprinkle it for the food to enhance the flavor of the food, or whatever your meal may be. And so to season the day by finding as many short opportunities throughout the course of the day as you can, of 15 seconds here, a minute there, when there's just no demands on your time. I'll give you a really good example, because I've experienced it today, and I imagine all of you did. Coming to a stoplight. It's so easy when we're coming to a stoplight, say, oh, we just missed the light. And now I have to wait. And we're waiting for that light and waiting, maybe, and mine's probably just wandering. We're wondering, when is this light ever going to get changed? And so, at the best, we're just kind of wasting time. But unless you're on the cell phone dealing with something really important, you've got nothing to do at all. So instead of just being impatient and waiting for the light to turn, why not just sit there and start practicing meditation? Why not just say, I'll keep my eyes open, so if I close my eyes and the light turns green, the people behind me are going to get very upset with me. Let's say they won't like Buddhist meditators after a while, with all their eyes closed. So keep your eyes open, so just enough so you can see that when the light turns, and then just say, how nice, I've got a minute, maybe even 2 minutes here. I hope it doesn't turn green too soon. So I can just, savor this moment with no demands on my time, and just breathe, let your awareness come into the body. And so, at a stoplight, or if you go to the grocery market or the bank or any other place where you have a queue, well, you're not going to get there any faster by being impatient. And so why not just, in the standing position, just follow the breath. Relax, follow the breath. And so be aware that waiting is not a physical posture. Waiting is a state of mind. And I'm now going to give you the freedom from now on. What I'm going to give you is priceless. You never have to wait again. You have my permission. Never have to wait again. This doesn't mean you can cut the queue. This means that you never have to wait again. You can, while everybody else is waiting, you can be the one person who's not waiting. Because waiting is a state of mind. I'm not getting something that I want. And I have to wait until I get it. I want the light to turn green. I want all of these people to disappear so I can buy my groceries or what have you. Waiting is a state of unfulfilled desire. Whereas if you say, well, I don't want to sit around with unfulfilled desire. It's uncomfortable. It's frustrating. I'm going to desire to make full use of that time just to cultivate mindfulness. And I desire to do that. I don't have to wait. I can do it right now. And eventually I'll have to stop, because then I'll be there at the counter and I'll be buying my vegetables. And then I'll have to engage with the person and do whatever is needed to be done. So really you don't have to wait ever again, right? You can take advantage of every opportunity where you would otherwise wait. Why not cultivate your mind? Bring it back to balance. Find some inner calm, inner serenity, okay? So the more frequently, just for brief moments, 30 seconds, a minute, maybe even 5 minutes, just to be able to calm the mind, come back to the breathing. It's very soothing, very good for the mind. Okay, questions? I'll bring out my glasses. Oh yeah, thank you. How does one's process. How does one review one's progress in meditation? It's a delicate question, because it's very easy in meditation, like anything else, to be goal-driven. And think, okay, I meditated this much, now where's the progress? How far am I? You know? And so, obviously one can overdo it. That means that every time you'd be meditating with some hope of expecting some type of result to be coming in within a very specific point of time. So on the one hand, it's important to meditate without desire, just to do it. As I mentioned before, the Venerable Ananda Maitreya was my primary teacher for this practice. He gave me instruction on Anapanasati. And I, being the American that I was, I told him, okay, I'll try. And he said, no, don't try. Just do it. Just do it. And we can think, oh, but it's so hard, it's so hard to sit for 24 minutes and not have the mind wander. But right in the present moment, it's not that hard. Have you noticed that? It's really not that hard to follow the breath right now. And so if you're just doing it right now, then that's the practice. And not thinking, oh, but I can't do it for 5 minutes. Don't try to do it for 5 minutes. Just do it right now. Right? And then the 5 minutes will happen of its own accord. At the same time, we don't practice meditation for no reason. If we're going to give time to this, there should be some benefit. It's not just a way to kill time. And so, here here's where the continuity comes in, and that is to maintain a regular practice. It's rather similar to physical exercise or training. I just was with some people training for the triathlon. That's going, I think today, in Phuket. Triathlon. Amazing. So these people are training and training, but they all know, just like yogis and athletes, in some regard, they're quite similar. You just will not be able to run that triathlon, run, swim, bicycle, that triathlon, by exercising really strenuously 1 day a week, or just on weekends, and then 5 days just being couch potato. It won't happen. You'll never be able to do the triathlon. And likewise, if you're just meditating on the weekends, or you're only meditating when you kind of feel like it, the meditation will never really progress. So finding, and the great sages of the past have given us really good advice, when you start out in meditation, start out modestly, right? Start out modestly. If you think, I might be able to do an hour, not quite sure, maybe I could do an hour, then don't do an hour, do a half an hour. Do something less than maxing out, doing as much as you possibly can. My first meditation teacher, who taught me shamatha quite extensively back in 1971, a Tibetan Lama, he said, when you're sitting down for your session, end the session before you're pooped out. End the session when you still have some juice left. End the session when you'd still like to meditate a bit more. Not like, oh, I guess I can't do it anymore, I quit now. He said, if you push it to the extreme every time, meditating as much as you can until you just don't want to do it anymore, and end always on that note, I don't want to do it anymore, okay, now I'll stop, I just can't stand it anymore. Then he said, the very sight of your meditation cushion will give you a sense of nausea. And it's like going to visit some friends. I had dinner with a new friend just yesterday. But if I'd stayed on and on, they served us a very nice meal, there was a delicious dessert. But then if I stayed on, and I stayed on, after a while, when is this guy ever going to leave? And then they probably would never invite me back. Because they can't get rid of this guy. He's probably waiting for the second meal. We invited him for lunch, he's waiting for dinner. So you don't want to overstay your welcome, and likewise don't overstay the time on the cushion. End when you still have some juice left. And then if you end each time feeling, that was good, I could have done a bit more, then you say, oh, maybe I can get in 5 minutes. Or, oh, maybe I can get in 10 minutes here. Oh, maybe there's nothing on television. I'll go off and meditate. Right? So that's it. So keep it modest, and then as you find time, then gradually extend the length of the sessions. Maybe you can take off a day once in a while to meditate 4 or 5 hours. But what you're checking here is, in terms of reviewing progress, is see in your meditation, are you sensing, even if you're only practicing in half an hour or an hour a day, do you have a sense of greater ease, of looseness and relaxation throughout the course of the day? Because the effects of the meditation should linger when you're not on the cushion. If they don't, then the meditation is fairly trivial. If it just gives you a little high while on the cushion and then it vanishes, then it's insignificant. So see if the meditation is progressing well, you'll find that you're more loose. You're more just loose, more relaxed, more at ease throughout the course of the day. Not so easily tensed up, contracted, anxious, uptight. So that would be one quality. Another quality is, do you find that you can sustain your attention for longer periods? Not so immediately falling into distraction. Not only while on the cushion, but when driving, when talking with someone, when in business. Can you maintain a better continuity of attention? And then thirdly, the third quality is the clarity. Are you finding overall just a greater sense of clarity, of luminosity, of brightness, of attentiveness on the cushion and off? Are you more present? And those would be the good signs of success. This shamatha practice is really a key to mental balance overall, right? It should enhance your overall mental health, and the healthier the mind becomes, then the greater sense of well-being you have, even when you don't have pleasant stimuli. The more screwed up the mind is, the more imbalanced, the more disturbed the mind is, then the more we become addicted to entertainment, to some type of a fix. Because there's so much unrest, the mind just feels uncomfortable. So we're looking for something. Where's the refrigerator? I'm not hungry, but just give me something here. Something to give me a little bit of pleasure. So I'll go off and just graze, just be munching around a refrigerator. And then maybe something on the television. Oh, something on radio. What's it to read? I can talk to somebody on the phone. I'm bored. Want to talk to me on the phone? It's just something to get our minds off our minds. Whereas the more the balanced the mind becomes, the less we may still enjoy a conversation, still enjoy food when we're hungry. but we don't have that addiction, that dependence, because we're tapping into inner resources.